Welcome to another episode of the Palace Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
Welcome into episode 30 of the Palace Huddle Podcast. As always, I'm Rob Schwartz, joined with my co-host and good friend, Justin Onayemi.
Good to see you, Rob. Mike Brown episode.
Yeah.
I brain farted a few weeks back when we were thinking about the number 30 for some reason.
And that's what caused me to say that last episode was our number 30th.
Yeah, that's why that was. So when I was not picturing Mike Brown for some reason, I was like, I can't picture any 30s. I'm going to have to go with a 30 outside of the Bears, in which case I would have went with Maglio Ordonez, but okay. No need. We'll go with Mike Brown.
Yeah. He's hard to forget, but at the same time, like his career was so short that he kind of was a blip on some people's radar, so I can understand it. How have you been? I feel like now that the season's over, I don't know, it's just been kind of crazy and hectic, but like we didn't have a game to watch, so like it's kind of like new this week. It's not like I had to focus in on taking notes and covering what happened on the game.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following the playoffs, watching games here and there, but I haven't been like locked in, zeroed in on it. But there have been some really good games, and I mean, a lot of the quarterbacks, maybe you know the number, I want to say 6 or 7 of the 14 are first time in the playoffs.
Okay. I wasn't sure where you were going with that. I was going to say I know that a lot of them are like 26 years of age and under.
Yeah, those two things go together probably.
Yeah, definitely.
But it gives us hope as a team.
It does.
That you want to see bounce back.
It does.
That maybe Fields could be in his first playoffs next year, assuming he's on the Bears.
Let's not get there yet.
We won't go there quite yet. But actually, I mean, that does kind of tie into one thing I want to just get off my chest right off the bat, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to hear it.
All right. So, I mean, there's been a ton of talk already. We're only a week removed from the season officially being over. And there's so much talk about what this offseason will look like for the Bears. But I want everyone to just stop, take a breath, and understand what they're about to witness. I mean, and that's not me saying every move they're going to make is going to work. There's a very good possibility they could make a move and it doesn't work, pan out the way they're hoping for or that we as fans are hoping for. However, you have to look at this particular offseason for the Bears as one of the most promising offseasons, again, mostly looking at this from a fan's perspective, that you could ever ask for. Because to me, there's nothing more frustrating than whatever team you root for, okay? They have a bad season or maybe a string of bad seasons, and you're sitting there thinking, all right, they need to do something, right? They need to improve this roster. Maybe they need to upgrade in the coaching or in the management side of things or develop their players. And I think it's something we could discuss later. I think for the coaching, I want to give everybody kind of another year, although, maybe there's some assistance I wouldn't mind seeing. That's the part we could discuss. But when it comes to actually improving this team, you hope that your team can make a splash in free agency or have a really high draft pick or make an impactful trade.
We've seen them a lot over the last couple of years.
Exactly. But the Bears are in position to do all three of those things. There's no way they're not going to be a major player in free agency. Right. They've got the number 1 pick in the draft and don't necessarily need that slot, which brings into question, will they trade? And there's a very strong likelihood they're going to, both that pick and maybe work some other trades. So as a fan or as media looking at this team, it's uncharted territory in my mind of how much they can do. And again, they'll swing at a free agent and that guy might not pan out. Or they'll trade back in the draft and get a guy and he may not pan out. But just the potential that is in front of all of us or all of them for the next 3 months or however long it'll take, let's just be excited about the potential that's there.
There's already so much toxicity on Chicago Bears Twitter right now. It's just astounding to me. The season's not even officially over. I mean, it is for Chicago, but it's not officially over for the season itself. There's so many things that can play out between now and March, and then now and April. It's very confusing to me on why anyone would be down on this team right now. I jumped in onto a Spaces, Twitter Spaces last night that the title was NFL is rigged, and turns out that's not what they were talking about when I jumped in. It was mostly Bears fans, so I was listening to them talk. And a few people were like down on the organization, and I get like being down on the organization of the past. This is a completely new regime. They're moving forward. They getting rid of Ted Phillips, bringing in Kevin Warren. Ryan Poles basically stripped this thing down. We've talked about it before. So they redid the rollover of what 2022's salary was into 2023. And so now the Giants are now second over the Falcons when it comes to salary cap. But they didn't get any closer to Chicago. I mean, they're at 54 million. Chicago's at 118.
What I don't understand, I mean, I'm 40 years old, and I'm going to say that because it kind of frames my next point. So if you're a fan of the Bears and you're way older than me or way younger than me, then maybe you have a different outlook. But seeing as I've been a fan for at least 37 of those 40 years and barely got a peek at the 85 Bears, the only Super Bowl team we've had, I don't understand.
Super Bowl winning team.
Apologize. That one,
Devin Hester.
Yeah, it was good for like a minute and a half of that game. But here's my question. Why is there an urgency to try to run a guy like Fields out of town when he's the closest thing we've seen to potential stardom at that position?
Yep.
And we'll talk about it later in the episode. I know we're going to talk about it later in the episode. There's nothing to lose with giving a look at what he can do next year with a vastly improved roster. If he stinks next year with a vastly improved roster, then you move on.
Yep.
I don't understand why there are people who feel this is the time to move on him. It doesn't make sense. And we're going to talk so much about it throughout this episode.
I mean, I guarantee that if they move down from number one overall, which is probably a 75% probability at this point, right?
I'd go higher, but
I would go higher too. But let's say they don't. So had CJ Stroud stayed out, it would have been, that pick would have been worth even more, because now it's really just Bryce Young, maybe Will Levis. But he announced today, he declared today, which I knew was going to happen. But if they move down, the likelihood of them having 2 first-round picks next year is extremely high. Right? Because they're going to get another one in this trade. So if things don't work out with Justin Fields, you're probably looking at having a top 15 pick again. It's going to be very easy for you to move up and get one of the top quarterbacks, which is a better draft class next year than it is this year.
The type of team that's trading up to get a rookie quarterback might be looking at a top 10 pick, even if he has a good year.
Yeah.
And we're talking worst case scenario, Fields fails next year.
Yeah.
Your pick's top 10.
Exactly.
Now you have 2 10s, or 2 within the first 10. You can trade up and get the number 1.
Yep.
Or if you only need to go to 5 to get your guy. I mean,
Exactly.
There's so many options. It's ridiculous to put this much pressure on moving on when you're just starting to see the slight improvement. And it should be generating excitement. And instead, for some people, it's just has them, taking crazy pills or something.
So, but you did kind of touch on it, right? So you're 40, I'm 39. It's not like I'm very far off.
Young lad.
And and we've not seen. I mean, we saw some success in the Lovie Smith era. They were consistently playoff contenders, but we haven't seen the level of success that some of these other franchises have had over the last few decades, right? So I think there's a lot of naysayers out there that quickly go to that pessimistic view that they're never going to do anything right. It doesn't matter who's in charge until the McCaskey sell the team. And then once the McCaskey sell the team, it's going to be, oh, these people don't know what they're doing. They're idiots. They're fools. I mean, it's just going to continue to snowball until eventually someone figures it out. But why can't it be now?
This offseason, again, not saying every move they're going to make is going to work, but if a good number of them do, this is the offseason where you can establish yourself as a regular contender for the next 5 years and hopefully on, because maybe you've identified the right type of leaders in Ryan Poles, in Matt Eberflus. I mean,
they can spend half of their salary cap that they have available, still leave 45, 50 million for the next season,
right?
And still outspend everyone else.
So I know, we did our mock off season. We'll do another few. Who knows?
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
I think some of the cap space that they have should go to lock up guys that aren't on expiring deals quite yet, like a Jalen Johnson, like a Cole
Kmet's probably going to be one of those guys. He was highly touted by Ryan Poles in his end of the year press conference.
The blue chipper or something. What they call?
I don't remember.
Do you have any blue chip players or something? And
he did mention Kmet in that breath.
Yikes! I mean, I like Kmet. He had a much better year than the year prior, at least in scoring touchdowns.
Efficiency,
right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's your number one blue chip, you're in trouble.
You are,
and that's what we saw.
You are.
Not going to give away everything, right here, but in going over some stats to kind of be ready for tonight's episode, I mean, Justin Fields, again, look, you can analyze him all you want, but he's still one of 11 players on the field on offense.
Yep.
And when you start looking at either targets or receptions or even yardage, there are no Bears anywhere near the top of the league. And when I say top, I mean probably no one in the top 50, to be honest. And there's 32 teams.
I want to say Cole Kmet was their leading receiver.
He was with yardage.
Yes.
And actually Claypool's numbers in some areas are higher than Kmet, but some of that's what he did in Pittsburgh.
Oh, got it.
So pretty sad, but that's where, again, you upgrade the roster and then you see what you have in everybody, but especially in Fields.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, so I'm gonna do a Rob's rant tonight, and it's gonna be involved with some things that have taken place over the last week regarding Justin Fields particularly. So I'll tease that. I don't know when it will happen. It'll be fairly soon, but the things that are coming out of certain people's mouths right now, whether it's an analyst that covers the NFL in a broad scope, whether it's an analyst who is just looking for that Skip Bayless type, just get some hot takes out there. Whether it's a Green Bay Packers analyst that likes to poke the bear, we'll say on Bears Twitter. They all have very flawed arguments, and I actually have to build off my rant towards specific fans that have actually come out and said some things in direct response to what I have already come out and said on Bear.
Wow. So this is going to get hot for sure.
It's going to get hot.
All right. So you got a Rob's rant. I got this just in as well. So we got both those segments.
Yeah.
You want me to go into mine right now? Or
if you're ready, you can do that first.
All right. It's going to take a little time, and I think it'll lead into your rant.
Okay.
So,
well, then that's good. Then
all right.
We'll do this. We'll take a break.
Okay.
Maybe I'll cool down just a little bit.
A little bit before. So, all right. So on episode 30's this just in segment, and Rob, you don't know what I got here. I always love to surprise you with this stuff. I want your gut reactions. So basically, I have two quarterbacks here, two young quarterbacks. I'm going to call one of them quarterback A and one of them quarterback B.
All right. A and B.
Okay. Now, I'm going to throw a lot of stats out there. So for you and for the listeners, there's going to be a lot to take in, but we're going to then go back and maybe highlight or low light a few parts of it. All right. So quarterback A, kind of looking at a season's worth of stats here. Quarterback A, 220 completions on 391 attempts. That comes out to a 56.2% completion rate. And I know you like yours quarterbacks at 60 plus.
60 plus.
So this quarterback is, I would say well short of that. This quarterback, again, in about a season's worth of time, threw 15 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. 2,582 yards, coming out to a quarterback rating of 76.6.
Okay.
Pretty blah, right?
Pretty blah.
Now, this quarterback does run. He ran for 571 yards and 9 touchdowns. I told you 15 touchdowns throwing and 10 interceptions, 9 touchdowns running, so a total of 24 touchdowns, but 6 fumbles. And so I don't know if all those fumbles were lost, so I'm just calling this stat potential for turnovers, because interceptions are obviously turnovers, and anytime you put the ball on the ground fumbling as a quarterback, somebody could scoop it up on the other team. So this quarterback, I'm going to put all the rushing and throwing together, had 3,153 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 16 potential turnovers. And again, the quarterback rating part of this was 76.6. That's quarterback A.
And it was 10 interceptions.
10 interceptions. Okay, so just what are your thoughts on quarterback A? Don't try to name him or anything like that, but what kind of quarterback you got?
I mean, it doesn't sound very good on paper. I'm very interested to see where you're going with it, because there's one particular player in my mind that comes to mind with this, but I feel like I'm way off.
All right, so these are just young quarterbacks. That's all I'm giving you. All right. Now quarterback B. But back to your analysis. Quarterback A, he's whatever.
Yeah, he could maybe take a step forward in his next season.
Hopefully he does.
He just falls off.
Okay. Quarterback B. 176 completions on 294 attempts. A 59.9% completion rate. So it's right at your 60, but just a smidge under. But if you notice, that's almost 100 fewer attempts than quarterback A. So it doesn't throw quite as much, which also makes sense that the yardage is a little lower. 2,056 yards. Comes out at a quarterback rating of 79.2. Okay. I left this part out, but quarterback B threw 12 touchdowns and 11 picks. So just not as much volume.
Yeah.
And truth be told, well, I'll get to that in a second. Now, this quarterback also runs 782 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, but 7 fumbles. So when I combine it all, this quarterback accounted for 17 touchdowns, 18 potential turnovers, which is like a 1-to-1. You don't really want that. You want
2-to-1 at least.
And 2,838 yards. Okay. So the other quarterback was 3,153 total yards. This quarterback B is 2,838, but with a much smaller pass volume. What do you think of quarterback B?
And slightly more yardage, if I remember correctly. The other one was 500 something. This was 700 something.
782 for quarterback B rushing, 571 for quarterback A.
Very similar. Slight differences, obviously. I do like the better completion percentage. To me, it's a little bit more efficient.
Okay.
But I don't know what's around either one of them, because I don't know who it is.
Okay.
Right?
So if you had to guess who is quarterback A, who is quarterback B, what guesses do you have?
So I have to ask a question that might lead me into one or the other.
Okay.
Are these stats particularly from 2022, or are they from previous years?
So there's a trick here.
Okay. So can I say who I think the first one is? And I think I'm way off.
All right, go ahead.
But I believe I have at least touchdowns and interceptions correct in my head. Is quarterback A Mitch Trubisky?
Mitch Trubisky for A?
Yeah.
That is not correct.
Okay.
But just the fact that that's who you could guess helps my point.
Okay.
But go ahead.
The reason I say that is in my mind, I'm pretty sure in 2018 he had 24 touchdowns and 10 interceptions.
Cool.
Everyone was on board with him, right? I mean, that was like the year. We're like, okay, if we get some better weapons around him, right? Okay. And he even had Allen Robinson that year. So
do you think there's a major difference between these two quarterbacks?
Major on paper, no.
Okay. So any more guesses, A or B?
I'm going to guess maybe Jalen Hurts is quarterback B with his 700 rushing yards.
Okay. So this is a trick. It's not as straightforward as I might have made it seem. These are not the same year, and it's actually an average of 2 years.
Okay.
Quarterback A, those are the average statistics of Josh Allen in his first 2 seasons, where he played a total of 28 games.
Okay.
Quarterback B is the average of the first 2 years, so not the same 2 years, but his first 2 years of Justin Fields.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's where I was thrown off then, right? Because I
And
was
he
trying
played,
to like
so
know
Fields,
totals.
they both actually, strangely, played 12 games in their first season.
Okay.
And Fields only played 15 this year, whereas Josh Allen played 16 in his second year. So these stats would be 28 games for Allen and 27 for Fields, but the volume still gives the yardage in the throwing area to Allen. Now,
but your touchdowns to interceptions or touchdowns to turnovers is pretty much equal.
Well,
right? 16.
Allen took care of the ball a little bit better. And granted, I just from watching the Bears, I know many of Fields' fumbles didn't turn to turnovers.
Sure.
But I just don't like that. I think if you put it on the ground, it's the potential of turnover.
Sure.
Now, I don't know how many of those are bad snaps. I don't know who those count towards or how those factored into this.
So anytime that there's a bad snap and it touches the quarterback, like it's not snapped over his
head. It's the quarterback's fumble.
It's the quarterback's fumble.
Okay. So I don't know. That's something we can, be a little nitpicky about. So going back over it, Fields with the better rating, Fields with a better completion percentage, granted on a lot fewer throws. Allen, a considerable amount more yards throwing, although it's higher volume and one extra game. A better ratio of touchdown to turnovers from Allen, and both are running quarterbacks. So pretty even. Now, let's talk though. That I don't want to make it seem like a lazy comparison. And so I want to obviously point out the elephant in the room here, which is Josh Allen's progress since year 2. We don't know. Fields is only in year 2.
Yep.
Next year will be year 3. So Josh Allen's year 3.
And you might not know this, but I do have a question. So you said Josh Allen played 12 games, and I know Fields played 12 last year, but Fields only started 10. One of those games was the Cleveland game, right?
I don't know it off the top of my head. I believe all of Allen's were starts,
which I do think makes a difference.
He started, I think, like the first 5 games of the season, then missed 4. I don't know if that was injury related or what, and then closed out. So Josh Allen in year 3, MVP season, I believe, or did he not get the? Well, these stats are MVP-esque.
I don't think he got it.
Oh, okay. 396 completions on 572 attempts.
Which, wow.
Now,
the attempts went way
exactly. Up. Well, hold on, though. What I gave you were averages.
Sure.
But I can tell you this. In year 3, he attempted 111 more passes than he did in year 2. He completed 125 more than he did in year 2. His completion percentage was a whopping 69.2. 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 4,544 yards, which was 1,455 more than the year prior. Quarterback rating of 107.2. This is why I said it was an MVP season.
Yeah.
Now, just so you know, he's also now had a year 4 and a year 5. Those numbers didn't stay like that. They're still really good, but his rating came down the following year to a 92.2. And then in year 5, which was this season, let me see if I have that. I do somewhere. My notes are everywhere. But I would be remiss to not mention the obvious thing we know about Josh Allen's year 3. Enter Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, bingo.
So when I tell you he completed 125 more passes, Stephon Diggs caught 127. Stephon Diggs was targeted 166 times, which means he caught the ball 76.5% of the time it was thrown to him. Stephon Diggs is responsible for 1,535 of the yards that Allen threw for, about a third, and had 8 touchdowns. Now, some of the change also has to be Allen progressing, being more familiar with reading defenses and the offense, and let's look at something. He's working with Dable.
I was just going to mention, Brian.
And we saw Dable in the playoffs, lead his team. And as a rookie coach, he's doing a very good job. So not going to get over here saying Bears should have hired him, whatever. But Fields is not in a dynamic offense, even though he may be a dynamic player. So what would Fields' year 3 look like if you bring in his version of Stephon Diggs? It might not be this, but we see the starting point is pretty similar. And I have a feeling, I personally feel the arrow is pointing up. And so will he get to crazy numbers, a rating over 100 and throwing over 4,000 yards, which no Bears quarterback has ever done? Now, granted, we're in 17 games now, so hopefully it's going to happen soon. Hopefully it's next season. But this could be the year he makes a leap. If you bring in more weapons, more protection, another year with Getsy.
Yeah.
Getsy was a rookie play caller. So I have faith and hope that if they don't get to these types of numbers, at least the progression goes to a much higher point. And if in addition to that, you're fixing up the defense a bit, now you're talking about a team that could contend in the NFC.
And that's where they have to go. If they don't get there, we talked about it. These coaches, they're on the hot seat. Brian Poles, I wouldn't put him on the hot seat yet, but he gets one more coach.
Yeah.
Maybe one more quarterback since it's not his quarterback. It's not going to be a 7-year Ryan Pace situation, and if it is, then that's a problem. But I have faith in Ryan Poles. I've been out there. I've said it from the beginning. Ryan Poles is the guy I wanted. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to support not every decision he makes. No general manager is perfect. Okay, no general manager is perfect, but he has put them in a position, as you laid out earlier. They have the first round pick, more cap space than any other team. They have a quarterback that at one point in the season was putting this team on his shoulders and scoring an average of basically 30 points per game. How do you not roll with him in 2023?
I have no clue. So I did actually find my notes here. So what I did also was just look at, you saw what comparing years 1 and 2 of Allen to years 1 and 2 of Fields. But I also then took the average, because that year 3 for Allen was a huge jump up that you can't put on anyone.
Yeah.
It was unexpected.
Almost, right?
His year 3, 4, and 5 averages I was able to calculate. And it comes out to...
By the way, he's considered at that point an elite quarterback.
Absolutely.
Right.
So he had a 107.2 rating in year 3. Yeah. 92.2 in year 4, 96.6 in year 5, which was this season. And he's been very durable. So it's equal games we're talking about. So his quarterback rating over the last 3 years is 98.7.
Love it.
Yeah, it's great, but attainable if you are that star-type player.
Yes.
388 completions out of 595 attempts. These are averages over those 3 years, which is a 65.2% completion rate. That's what you want to see.
Love it.
Averaging 36 passing touchdowns to 13 picks. That's a good ratio.
Very good.
3-1, basically. He's been adding 7 touchdowns with his feet per year. So when you combine that, 43 touchdowns a year he's responsible for, and 18 potential turnovers, because he still does fumble about 5 times a season and 13 picks.
Every running quarterback has the potential to fumble, right? Every running quarterback.
So his rushing numbers were in year 3, 421 yards. In year 4, 763, really consistent here because in year 5, 762.
Yeah.
So that's an average of 649 yards rushing, and he's averaging 4,411 throwing, coming out to, if you add those together, he's responsible for 5,060 yards on average the last 3 seasons, and then with 43 touchdowns per season.
Tristan, this is my son. If you're listening to this podcast, I know you won't be. They used to actually try to listen to our podcast while they clean their room. And I told them they're not allowed to because it's the explicit version.
Oh, boy.
If you're listening to this, Josh Allen is not a big fat burrito. Okay? My son apparently has been calling Josh Allen a big fat burrito because he likes Patrick Mahomes more and wants Kansas City to win this year.
Well, I didn't do Mahomes' numbers. They might even go beyond
I'm sure that they're beyond, but that's not the point. He's not a big fat burrito.
You and I were – no, he's not. He's not. But you and I have been comparing Fields to Allen for a while.
Yes.
The running, right. I think it was noted that Allen kind of struggled.
I shouldn't say everybody has. Everybody's been comparing the Bears to the Bills, right? And then like trying to tie Fields into Allen, even going into the season. Like, where can we go from here? But there's other teams. There's other blueprints. We've seen it with not Josh Allen. We've seen it with Jalen Hurts. We've seen it this year with Tua. I mean, Miami, they came out and actually played a decent game, lost 31-34 to the Bills, but like had Tua been there, I think that would have been an even better matchup.
Right.
You see it. You got to give quarterbacks can't do it on their own. They just can't. I don't believe the Jay Cutler mantra of quarterbacks make wide receivers. No, they complement one another.
Absolutely. And you build a chemistry and
yes,
and you go from there. So, well, anyway, that was my This Just In. Wanted to dive deeper into the numbers, and we'll see where Fields goes in year 3. But we would expect a big jump.
Yes.
Because this is the time where he should be able to be recognizing defenses and getting that connection to particular receivers and hopefully get a blue chip type player. It's not Cole Kmet.
It is not Cole Kmet. As much as he is the brand of my half of the show.
Yeah, it's not Cole Kmet.
It's not Cole Kmet.
So I think we should take a break. And I do believe that will feed a little bit into your rant.
A little bit.
So, all right. Enjoy these ads. All right, welcome back, Hallis Huddle listeners. Episode 30 here of the Hallis Huddle. I'm Justin Oniemi with Rob Schwarz, and this is our first episode after the Bears have, fully been eliminated. Actually, that's not. Is that true?
I mean, they were eliminated, but
mathematically they were eliminated like week 9 or something. But well, anyway, it's an off-season focus, and we spent the beginning part kind of, just talking about the outlook of the team and this off-season being a monumental off-season, just by the way it all set up perfectly for the Bears, and then this Just In segment comparing Josh Allen's first 2 years in the league to Justin Fields' first 2 years in the league, and they're remarkably similar. So hopefully Justin Fields' remainder of his career can start to look like Josh Allen after those first 2 years. But we also said that Rob was going to be coming with a rant. So
I am.
How do you want me to set it up? Do you want me to just kind of move to the side, or I don't know?
I think, again, it's going to build.
Okay.
I think as I keep getting into it, it's going to get me more and more angry. It's going to get a little bit more passion.
And I thought that I would kind of, feed the fire a little bit by making my This Just In about Justin Fields, because I have a feeling that's where your rant is going.
Yeah. So this past week and a half, we've got a bunch of NFL pundits out there basically trying to paint the picture that the Chicago Bears need to trade Justin Fields. Okay? Rather than trade the first-round pick, they need to trade Justin Fields. They need to draft Bryce Young. Not even any other quarterback. Don't care what their scouting department tells them, right? Just take Bryce Young, because they've already anointed him as the top pick in this draft. Even though he's only 5'11", 190 pounds, going to get killed by this offensive line.
Isn't that Drew Brees' height?
Yeah. How well did that work out for him versus every other 5'11" quarterback?
No. I'm just saying somebody, I don't know.
There's two.
I can't credit anyone with this, but people saying Bryce Young is Drew Brees with mobility.
I can appreciate that, but there's been a lot of 5'11" quarterbacks who just don't succeed, and not very many that come to mind that do. I'm pretty sure that Russell Wilson is also 5'11".
I was just about to say what Russell Wilson's height. That's what I was going to ask.
Two. Okay.
All right.
Go ahead and put him behind this offensive line and let him take those hits, because he's not going to last long.
If it's Fields, if it's Young, if it's me back there, that better not be the same old line.
That's true.
But anyway.
That's true. So Mike Tannenbaum is the first one that comes to mind. He was the first one that came out and said that the Chicago Bears must draft Bryce Young. They must trade Justin Fields to get a first and third round pick in return, and then use their salary cap for 4 starting caliber players. My response to this was keep Justin Fields, trade the first overall pick, because you're going to get more than a first and a third. Come on, that's absolutely ridiculous. And use that salary cap, like I said. you're going to get 5 to 6 starting caliber players. Like if to just say 4 just irritates the hobby. But whatever. He's just throwing shit at the fan, trying to stir the pot. That's what these guys do. All right. Next up, our boy Peter Bukowski. Okay. If you don't know who he is, if you're not on Chicago Bears Twitter, he is a Green Bay Packers analyst. Okay. I wouldn't even consider him a beat reporter, but he's kind of like in that realm. He threw out some stats out there too. Okay, Justin Fields led the league in sack percentages, sacks and fumbles. He was the second worst in interception percentage and second last among preferred starters in completion percentage, despite having the second fewest drops in the league. Okay, so he's saying that the Chicago Bears have the second fewest drops in the league. Mathematically, from a total perspective, he is correct. However, the more you throw the football, the more chances that you're going to have drops. So if you take the actual amount of attempts that you're throwing the ball and you divide that out to figure out what your actual drop percentage is, the Chicago Bears do not have the second fewest drops in the league. Okay. In fact, I believe off the top of my head, they're around 11. Okay. Still around league average or right in the middle. Okay.
That surprises me.
It honestly surprised me too. I thought they'd be closer to having the most. And in Bukowski's defense, the Packers did have the most drops in the league from both a total standpoint and a drop percentage standpoint. Okay. So I give him a little bit of credit there. Okay. I'm just going to keep going with these, and then we're going to get into why all these guys are wrong. Okay. Well, Sean McCoy, again, quoted the completion percentage for Justin Fields. Okay. Under 60%. Everyone knows I want my quarterbacks to have over 60%. Honestly, 64-ish is probably where you really want to be. But anything over 60 makes me happy because I've seen Josh Allen have a completion percentage of 60% in a game. I've seen Patrick Mahomes have a completion percentage of 60% in the game, and they're still throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Okay? You don't have to have 65% or more every time. But this is where I get frustrated. Okay? None of these people, none of them, are taking into account his progress, his progression. When you look at season total stats, and I used to be a fantasy football analyst. That's what I used to do before I started just solely focusing on the Chicago Bears. If you were to pull season totals at the end of the year and use that to determine your rankings, you're not going to get the top running back and top wide receiver most of the time. Because what you want are the guys who have the best per week average, right? So you're going to have guys that might have we did this when we were doing UFFL. We'd be looking at our IDP guys. There'd be a guy that have a huge number within those first few weeks. Why? Because he had 1 week that he had 30 points and the rest he averaged 3. You don't want that as your IDP guy. No. You want the guy who's averaging 10 to 15 points per week. So those first 5 weeks that Justin Fields, and I honestly could go to week 7, and you touched on it, he only started 10 games in 2021. He didn't start a full, and I know it's a 17-week schedule, so I do go only the first 5. He didn't start a full season until week 7 based on today's 17-week schedule. Okay? He's also in a second system in year 2. I got to catch my breath. To just take those weeks and lump them in and not look at the weeks as progress. He literally started here, and his progress goes this way. He had a really bad week against Detroit. If anyone wants to come at me, I admit that was honestly his worst game of the season. Worst game of the season. Hey, I tracked his stuff. I did this with Fields Focus. I know I fell off and I didn't get every single game since the New England game. But I looked at his stuff, right? Every week, I went every single play. And I went through and I ranked that play. I graded that play. And then I came up with a total grade to see where he was for the year. From week 5 through the end of the season. I'm not even taking out somebody. I got to call them out. I got to call you out. All right. I have a Bear Goggles On article that's out there that I dissected a lot of this stuff. I got people on here. I'm going to call you out. I don't even know who you are. T. Gina. Okay. T. Gina trying to call me out, saying that I'm cherry picking stats. Okay. Gus 5580 saying I'm cherry picking stats. Get the fuck out of here. I ain't cherry picking nothing because I'm leaving that Detroit game in. Okay. If I was cherry picking stats, I would have pulled that. I would have went every game but that. Oh, he was hurt. He was the last game of the season. Didn't matter for him. We're not going to count that. That's cherry picking stats. Okay. No, I took week 5 through week 17. Those are the games that he played. Okay. He didn't play week 18. Nathan Peterman did. Okay. On average, out of those games, total yards, 264 yards. 264. Don't tell me, oh, but what about his passing yards? Yeah, he only averaged 161 passing yards. But he averaged 96 yards on the ground. When you're running the football and you're taking away, you only have so many set plays in a game. Only so many set plays in a game. Between 70 and 80 plays in a game, right? Maybe sometimes even the 60s. When you're running for 96 yards, you don't have the opportunity to throw for another 100 yards. 264 total yards per game. He had 15 touchdowns over that time through the air. He had 8 touchdowns over that time on the ground. Okay? His completion percentage through that time, including a week against the Lions where he threw a 33.33% completion percentage. His completion percentage still averaged out to 65.84%. LaShawn McCoy, shut the F up. You don't know what you're talking about. You might have been a great football player, but to sit here and come out and try to make it seem like he can't complete passes is just bullshit. It's bullshit.
You need a cool down? Can I throw a couple stats in to support what you're saying?
Yeah, I do need a cool. I need to drink.
So Justin Fields, and maybe you know the actual way this stat is calculated. I was trying to figure it out and couldn't. But there's your completion percentage, and then there's your expected completion percentage. I guess it would factor in things like drops, but I don't know what else it might factor in, because otherwise that would just seem kind of simple to figure out. Justin Fields had the 5th largest discrepancy from his true completion percentage to his expected percentage in the whole league. He completed 60.4% of his passes, but was actually expected to complete 65.5%. And then on this list, I went down to the top 11, actually, because I got to Goff, and I wanted to make sure to include someone like him, who everyone's touting. Justin Fields, Baker Mayfield, Carson Wentz, and Jared Goff are the only ones who had an expected percentage over 65%. And then there was another stat. I definitely couldn't figure out what this meant, but it matched the eye test. There was something called aggression percentage. So
my guess is that, it's based off of
he was the lowest in the league.
Okay.
Meaning, and what I took it as is they're not throwing the ball that much. Like, that's not what they're doing. You know what I mean? And it's going to make your stats come down.
Yeah.
He says he doesn't care about stats. He cares about winning. Well, the winning wasn't there, and maybe in some areas the stats weren't. But to just outright say he's not a quarterback or he's not a good quarterback seems too soon and off base.
Way off base. So I don't understand. LaShawn McCoy has been on Justin Fields' case
the whole time.
This whole time.
Saying no receivers will come here, which is stupid anyway.
That was in the same...
That's stupid anyway, because they'll come for the money.
One, they're going to come for the money. Have you never heard Darnell Mooney talk? Darnell Mooney absolutely loves Justin Fields. I am sure after this offseason, Chase Claypool is going to feel the same way. Oh, maybe not, because he likes to do his TikTok videos, and he's not going to have enough time. Why? Because they're going to be in Atlanta, and they're going to be working on that timing, right? So he is one of the hardest working guys I've seen, and I don't want to hear, hardest working. Oh, Mitch Trubisky was the hardest working guy too. Guess what? Yeah, that only gets you so far. He's also a great leader, and he's showing you over and over and over again that he can put this team on his shoulders, and he can win. Well, not win, but he can get them close enough.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many intangibles that he's demonstrated in these 2 years that you never know about a guy like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or any of these players that you're just going to go out and draft and assume they're going to be better.
I am not a Family Guy fan. Okay, I am not a Family Guy, but I've seen clips of this part on Twitter many times. But it's basically Peter and Lois in a office, and there's a guy who's like a salesman who's basically saying that they want a boat. They get a boat for free. And there's like, oh, well, you can have that boat, or you can have what's in this mystery box, which is basically the size of a shoebox. And Lois was like, you're out of your flipping mind. But Peter interrupts and says, well, wait a minute. A mystery box could be anything. A mystery box could be a boat. It's what we've always wanted.
And they're the only ones who take the box. Yes. Everyone else is going down the street with their boats and everything.
So, again, Bryce Young could be Justin Fields.
So, a couple of statistics where Fields kind of did rate favorably was completion air yards. He was number 8 in the whole league with 6.5. Number 1 is Tua at 8.5. Number 2 is Josh Allen at 7.4. Good company. Other people on that list, though, just guys. Yards per attempt, he was at 7.0, which only puts him at 20th in the league. But I just want to point out, for yards per attempt, he was tied with Trevor Lawrence, Derek Carr, Zach Wilson, and Mitch Trubisky. He was better than Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Mike White, Daniel Jones, Justin Herbert, Mac Jones, Matt Ryan, Davis Mills, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Tom Brady, Carson Wentz, Kenny Pickett, and Kyler Murray. A few of those names are names we've heard that people have touted. So
just a few.
And I was basing that on minimum of 100 attempts. And then as I'm going through some of these numbers and things, I cut it off at minimum of 100 attempts, which neither Trevor Siemian or Peterman got to. But just to be fair, their stats were much worse than his. So, I think the Bears have a big lack of talent on their team, which means any quarterback is going to struggle a little more with that roster than if he was on a different team. I mean, watching these playoffs, I just keep thinking with every team, I'm like, wonder if they'd want Fields.
Right?
Not every team is going to say,
I guarantee you the Jets would have wanted Fields at this point.
Absolutely. What was the other? I mean, even I'm not going to take anything away from Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy.
I'm not going to take anything away from him. But the Niners, that's a team, man. That's a team.
I mean, at this point, though, would they have rather had Justin Fields over Trey Lance?
Well, that's kind of where I was going. And the reason that I think even to bring up Brock Purdy, he did have more than 100 attempts, so he qualified in all my things. He's number 1 in the league in quarterback rating, 107.3. Tua comes next, 105.5. Mahomes, 105.2. But who's next here? Jimmy G at 103.
Yeah.
So you have 2 guys in the top 4. That tells you the supporting cast is doing everything they need to do.
For sure.
And the coaching.
For sure.
And the system.
All right, I have just a few more stats that I wanted to touch on too. So Peter Bukowski mentioned the interception percentage. Okay, interception percentage was 3.5%. Okay, the only player worse than him was Dak Prescott, 3.8, who by the way is destroying the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. Right. Again, the key here though is he showed progress and development, and to just ignore that is just like it's in the word. It's ignorance. It's ignorance. Okay, so what he doesn't tell you, Justin Fields is also 6th, and I'm not even. This is for the whole year. I'm not even touching. You want to use season stats? He's 6th in touchdown percentage. The only people better than him, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, again Dak Prescott had said he's having a Jameis Williams type year. Josh Allen and Tua Tagovailoa. Oh God, just Tua. Okay, I can't talk. All right, those are the only people who are better than him.
Good company.
Okay. Now, let's go back to the interception percentage. Since week 5, again, I'm cherry picking. Since week 5, his interception percentage was 3.5 for the season. It dropped to only 2.7. That would have put him just a tick ahead of Matthew Stafford and Josh Allen for the year. Okay?
And name any quarterback in the league pretty much And I would say he has a better supporting cast than Justin Fields.
Maybe the Giants' wide receiver core is about equal, right?
Or even Barkley.
But again, yes, you have Barkley. I mean, if I like the tandem of David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, but from a receiving standpoint, it's nothing like Saquon Barkley. Nothing. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm done. We already touched on the fumble thing. Okay, he had 16 fumbles. 8 of them were recovered. Only 8 were lost. And I can count, because we talked about it, Sam must have heard at least 4 or 5 of those on his own. Okay? At least 4 or 5 of those on his own. So stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Stop with the whole season-long nonsense. Stop ignoring the progress. Stop ignoring the development. Stop saying he can only do it with his legs. He's showing you he can do it all around. There are things that Justin Fields needs to work on. I am not going to sit here and tell you that he did not make mistakes. We've talked about it till I was blue in the face on other podcasts. He misses anticipatory throws on a consistent basis. He does not trust his receiving staff. He does not trust his offensive line. He does not trust that he throws it where he's going to throw it, that they are going to be there to catch it. He needs to do that. He needs to stay in the pocket more sometimes, and he needs to make those throws. He also needs to do a better job of checkdowns. We saw it get better at the end of the year, but it's not perfect. He has things to work on. Ryan Poles said it. I'm saying it. Justin's saying it. But LaShawn McCoy, everyone else who's out here trying to say that they need to trade him needs to just stop. Stop.
Can I just point out that that's dumb for another reason? And you already said it, but like the other teams that would want to trade for, let's say, the number 1 pick, as opposed to trading for Justin Fields, the Bears are going to have to make a decision on pretty soon here. If you're another team trading for him, you're going to have to make a commitment to him sooner than you would a rookie.
Yes.
So there's not as much to gain in trading for him. It's just a dumb take. But that does transition us nicely to what we want to do next. Are you good, or do we need another break?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. So we talked about it, opened the show by saying that this offseason is going to be tremendous as a Bears fan, because you know they're going to be players in free agency. You know that the draft is all hinging on them, with them holding the number 1 spot and not necessarily needing it. And with trading the number 1 pick, or even just trades in general, I think they're going to be an active team in the trade market. So that takes us to the last thing we want to do on this episode, which is talk about some of the trade rumors that are out there and what we think about those, or what we think the Bears should think about those.
Yeah, so I put together some random trade scenarios, and we're going to continue this throughout the offseason. We're not going to dive too deep into this, but I came up with some random first-round trade scenarios, and then I threw out a separate little section where it's like, who of these wide receivers would you be willing to trade for and give things up? So the first one we're going to focus on is the first-round pick trades, okay? So in this scenario, the Bears are trading with the Raiders. Okay, the Bears get the 7th overall pick, 39th overall pick, Davante Adams. And I don't even know for sure Davante Adams is going to be available. But with the Derek Carr situation, you just never know. The Raiders get the Bears' 1st overall pick, and then that Eagles 4th round pick, which is going to be in the 130s. Are you making that trade? I would definitely think about it.
So we talked about, if you trade that first, one of the things you were hoping for is a first next year.
Yes.
However, if you're trading out of the top 10, you must get a first round next year.
Yes.
In my mind. But if you're getting a pick inside the top 10 and you're getting a player like Davante Adams, you got to slow down and think about that.
I know he's 30, but he's coming off a year of 15 touchdowns, led the league, 1,400 yards.
That doesn't worry me at all. I mean, he's still got a lot in him, if you ask me. I would definitely consider that trade. What's interesting, though, a few shows back when we even first heard that this was a possibility, we were like, run to that, you got to jump on that right away.
Yes.
Over time, I've been hearing maybe they get that 7th and Max Crosby. Okay. And so with all these teams, whether it's the Raiders, whether it's the Colts, whether it's Well, I don't know about the Texans.
Oh, the Texans could be trading Brandon Cooks.
Okay,
now.
throw Brandon Cooks into a trade.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think about the players that you might throw in. And so we'll come back to the Colts in a little bit. But to me, Davante Adams stepping onto the team of the Bears next year immediately changes a lot of things for your offense. So we talked about that year 2 to year 3 jump that Josh Allen made when he all of a sudden, hey, Stephon Diggs, hello. It wasn't all Stephon Diggs. Think about how the coverage works on other guys when you have Davante Adams.
We've mentioned it. Even with Chase Claypool here not producing, it opened up Cole Kmet.
So to me, you do this trade, and I still think we talked about it. So keep listening. If you've heard our other episodes, you're going to hear some repetition. I would really love to see them land Saquon Barkley as a free agent. So if they land Saquon Barkley as a free agent and pull off this trade, your skill position players is Justin Fields, Saquon Barkley, Davante Adams, Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, Cole Kmet. With the 7th pick, maybe you go for O-line. Maybe you trade back and accumulate more picks and then go O-line.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go D-line there too.
Yeah, you could get Brian Breesy out of Clemson at 7.
Myles Murphy. I mean, there's some guys at that 7th, you're going to get an impact player or someone you hope is an impact player. 39 is a pretty good place to be picking in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
This team needs a lot.
That gives them now 2 second-round picks. They lost their other one for Chase Claypool, but they'll be 39. And then we just found out yesterday with Baltimore losing, that they get the 54th pick. So
I think that's one you strongly have to consider. I would lean yes.
All right. I don't know if the Raiders will do it, but hey, it's one we're going to throw out there.
Okay.
Here we go with the Jets. Now, you mentioned trading out of the top 10. This is one that I'm going to throw at you that does trade you out of the top 10. All right, the Bears are going to get the 13th overall pick. They're going to get their 2nd-round pick, which is 44, their 3rd-round pick, which is 75, a 2024 first, a 2024 second. Plethora of picks, no players. The Jets get the first overall pick. They're going to go get their new quarterback because they whiffed on Zach Wilson. And again, we're going to throw in the Eagles' 4th-round pick for that 130 mark. Are you interested in that amount of picks?
So the number of picks does interest me. Picking 13th, again, I can't say this enough. Just because you're getting 13th doesn't mean you're picking 13th. You could package that to move up. You could package that and go back. But I think at 13, maybe then you go after Skoronski or a tackle there.
I honestly, I think Skoronski might go before then, but there are 2 other guys, Paris Johnson.
Yeah.
I honestly, if at 13, I'm thinking Quentin Johnson.
There you go.
I'm thinking Jordan Addison.
You get your 1A receiver in the draft.
I'm thinking Jackson Smith.
Okay.
Nigba.
Yeah. Well, they say he could be a day 2 guy. But anyway, okay. So in this trade, you're not getting a Davante Adams type. You're not getting a receiver. So maybe drafting your receiver at 13 is kind of where you make it up. And then you're getting those picks next year.
Yes.
There's value.
Yes.
The Jets with Bryce Young aren't going to be, well, they have a good supporting cast, I guess.
They do. They have some good offensive weapons.
Yeah, that's true.
Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson.
That's true.
I'd love to have that here.
Oh, yeah. Well, still likely to be a decent 1st-round pick plus yours.
Yeah.
That's intriguing. But I don't know.
All right. So
I'm not as excited about that one.
Okay. So this next one puts us right at the cusp of the top 10. Okay. So the Bears are going to trade with the Panthers this time. You're going to get number 9 overall, and you're either going to get DJ Moore or Brian Burns. I don't know which one's going to be available. We're just going to say that we're going to wheel and deal, and one of them is going to be available. The Panthers get the Bears' 1st overall pick and a 2024 4th. They need a quarterback. They're not going to go with Sam Darnold. Even though he played well at the end of the year, they're not going to go with Sam Darnold.
So I don't love this one. That being said, and I guess we're going to get to this a little later, the trade to get a number 1 receiver into Chicago doesn't have to be involving the number 1 pick.
Correct.
So if you do this trade, I would take Brian Burns and the 9, and hopefully you're making a different deal where you're maybe only giving up a mid-round pick or 2 mid-round picks to get your receiver. That's how I would go if you do this trade. To be honest with you, I don't think that's enough.
I would take Burns over Moore in a heartbeat. And I like DJ Moore. We've had him on our UFFL team.
Right.
But yeah, I would take Brian Burns in a heartbeat over DJ Moore. All right, so this is where it gets interesting. So a team that we know wants to move heaven and earth. He was asked, Chris Ballard was asked, would you move heaven and earth for a new quarterback in this draft? And he said he is willing to do whatever it takes. There's already rumors that they would be willing to move Michael Pittman. Okay? Some people are saying he's meh.
They're wrong.
I don't think he is Devontae Adams-esque. I don't think he's Stephon Diggs-esque. He's not going to move the needle in that regard. But he's also a young receiver
player,
coming into year 3.
Yep.
Over 1,000 yards per season.
99 catches, I believe, this year.
I know his touchdowns aren't there, but look at who's been the carousel of quarterbacks there, right? I'm going to throw this one out there, okay? The Bears get 4th overall, 36th overall, and this one's just going to be picks. 2024 first, 2024 second. You're giving them a first, the first overall pick, and then a 2024 fifth and a 2024 fourth. I'm sorry, 4th and 5th. No players involved. Do you like that group of picks better than the Jets group of picks?
Looking back at our notes here.
Yeah, I think the answer has to be yes, just because you're only moving down to 4.
Yeah, they're better picks this year and projected to be better next year, I would imagine.
I would hope so.
So I would like that over the Jets one. However, when I keep hearing the Colts as a trade partner, I hear DeForest Buckner,
3 names.
I hear Quentin Nelson, and I hear Michael Pittman. And all 3 of those names excite me because they're all needs for the Bears, although throw a dart at a depth chart and you basically found a need that the Bears have.
That's true.
Now, could you get 2 of those players and the 4th pick and something else? Or is that just too crazy? I thought I heard a few rumors that said 2 players.
I mean, if you're doing that, you're not
getting your 1st and 2nd next year.
No, not at all.
But you don't. I mean,
you're
getting 2 impact starters,
right?
And whoever you drafted for, who you're hoping is an impact starter,
right? I mean, if you're just swapping 1st, 4th, you're getting Buckner and Pittman. You're probably going to have to give up some of your future draft capital for that. Depends on what rounds that's in.
Okay.
There's definitely some talks to be had, and Ryan Poles needs to have Chris Ballard's phone, like, you know how you get your favorite, like, little buttons on your... Yeah,
you got that text.
Yes, right there. All right, so Justin kind of hinted at it already. The next little thing that we're going to go through is, instead of using the 1st-round pick, what can they do to get potential wide receiver 1 here in Chicago? So I have a few names that I've heard just out there, right, that could be potentially available. Some of these I'm worried I have no chance of being available. But we already know DeAndre Hopkins is going to be available. DeAndre Hopkins has already been rumored to be on the trade block from the Arizona Cardinals. Now, he does have a no-trade clause, which is going to make it a little bit more difficult. But if he's given the opportunity to go somewhere else, if he's not wanted there, I'm sure he would be willing to take it, especially if that team's willing to give him some more money.
Exactly.
Right? DeAndre Hopkins is coming off of 2 seasons where he has not started more than 10 games. He's coming off a season where he had a 6-game PED suspension. We just saw Amari Cooper, who had better stats and is younger. Like, by the way, DeAndre Hopkins will be 31 before the next season starts.
Mm-hmm.
Amari Cooper at the time was 27, turning 28. Went for 2 5th-round picks to Cleveland.
What was his contract status? It was going to be up that year? They immediately signed him to a long-term deal.
He was immediately signed to a long-term deal. He had maybe 2 years left on his deal.
So if
that current year and then the year after.
The reason you're able to not give up as much draft capital.
Which, by the way, DeAndre Hopkins is in the same situation.
Yeah, exactly. And so draft-wise, you're probably not going to have to give up that much for Hopkins. Some people are out there speculating weird trades because I'm like, you don't need to give up that much for a guy with 2 years left on a deal.
Tyreek Hill type trade.
Right.
Tyreek Hill was way younger. Hasn't had the injury history. Tyreek Hill's contract situation was different. In this case, DeAndre Hopkins, too, he I mean, okay, so he did come on. He had 700 yards this year, only playing in like half the season, which is very good.
I mean, he's a difference maker. But he's getting up there, and I don't know. He's not my number one target.
Would you rather have Adams or Hopkins?
Adams.
For sure.
The price is more for Adams.
For sure.
But I'd rather have Adams. Should we give all the names and then kind of say which ones we would want?
All right, so we already mentioned Adams. Mike Evans is a potential guy. He's going into 2023 on his final year of his contract. Depending on what Tom Brady does,
What's his age? Do you know?
Tear that down. He'll be 30.
Okay.
Same as Adams.
Okay.
So
basically, those three are the older receivers.
Yes.
And then there's the younger batch.
Now, I tweeted this out while watching the Bengals game. I don't think he's going to be available, but if there's any way that T. Higgins can become available, okay, these last three guys are guys who are going to be in their contract year after 2023. So you're hoping that the team is not able to foresee being able to pay them
and wants to get
something instead of nothing.
Yeah.
All right. So T. Higgins out of those Cincinnati, Brandon Ayuk out of San Francisco, and we've mentioned him a few times, Jerry Jeudy. Out of those three, Jeudy to me is the cheaper option, right? He's not accomplished anything near the other receivers that are on this list, but still young and has a lot of potential. T. Higgins would be my top guy out of all of the players on this list. And Brandon Ayuk had a breakout year this year finally because he's been healthy.
Mm-hmm. So those younger guys, they'll probably cost you a little more draft capital. And I guess none of them are truly that number one that we're talking about.
See, now, T. Higgins might require the first overall pick. But I would think you would also get the Bengals' first-round pick somehow in that trade.
Okay. Oh, you'd have to.
Right?
You'd have to give up the number one.
Yeah.
But I guess those younger guys does make you then think, okay, why not get your own young guy?
That would be the hope.
And he's on a rookie deal, and he develops his whole time with you in your system.
The problem is that this wide receiver class is not
top heavy.
Yeah. And the hope would be what many fans are hoping for is that the Bears suck again, and then get the guy out of Ohio State.
Marvin Harrison.
Marvin Harrison Jr. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm looking at it this way. I guess if you trade for one of those older guys, I still would be okay with them drafting a receiver in the second round or third. You know what I mean?
Like, yes.
The position needs attention.
Yes, there's
a considerable amount.
Zay Flowers or, we don't know where the guy out of Tennessee. I mean, some people are
Hyatt.
Yeah, Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt. They're saying he might jump up into the first round, but he might just stay in the second round. There's guys that could be had. Josh Downs out of North Carolina. There's people that can be potentially there. You mentioned JSN out of Ohio State might fall out of the first, or even if he doesn't, maybe he falls to the bottom of the first, and somehow Ryan Poles moves up.
So if I had to rank the older receivers, I would go Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans.
I agree.
If I had to rank the younger ones, I'd go T. Higgins, Ayuk, Jeudy.
Now throw DJ Moore in there somewhere.
He's right in that middle, I guess.
I was going to say, I'd have him above Jeudy.
Okay.
It'd be close between him and Ayuk for me. Higgins is by far the top player, but I think he costs a hell of a lot more if the Bengals are even willing to move on from him.
And all of this underscores something we've said many times too. The free agent class is not great. You're not getting a top of the receiving room kind of guy.
No.
You're getting a filler. So if you want that guy, which I don't know why they wouldn't, it's going to come via trade or the draft, and it's not in the draft.
Yeah.
Not without a trade.
Yeah.
So when you're already trading, maybe getting Michael Pittman is the receiver you need.
By the way, I'd put Michael Pittman in that Brandon Ayuk category too.
That's fair.
In fact, I might even
with some of the other things you're getting,
I might even put him ahead of that because of health reasons. Ayuk has not been healthy outside of this year.
True. And Pittman's had 2 good years, so Well,
there's a lot of things that are going to be speculated between now and then. There's a lot of news that's going to break between now and then. Justin and I are going to be here for you guys. We're going to continue this.
Maybe
we're gonna. We won't be. I won't be. I'm gonna be on vacation next week, so I will not be around for next week. But hopefully, we'll be back that first week of February.
Sounds good. And there's so many things to cover. So if you're in the comments section or have any ideas of things you'd want to hear us cover, go ahead and let us know.
Yeah, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell.
I don't think we can do our thing. We should start the next episode with
we got a new thing we're going to start next week for you.
We forgot it. We were too excited. There's just so much to cover. So
this was a long one. I appreciate you guys sticking through, but we went through a lot of content.
All right. Nice job, Rob.
Bear down.
Bear down.